about saying, there you go. There you go. See, that's what I'm talking about. That recorded. Right. So take two. Hey, how y'all doing? I'm your guest tonight, Sonja Jones, and thank you for Sister LaKena um for giving myself as well as the other ladies the opportunity to witness to you in such an amazing way. You're going to see just throughout this week how each lady, including LaKena, has said yes to God's assignment, right? And I'm honored to be able to share my story with you. And I was sharing with LaKena. What I'm going to share with you guys tonight is actually my first time sharing this to the general public about my journey into full-time entrepreneurship. So I hope that this blesses you. And again, if you have any questions about anything, you can definitely put them in the chat. So, and I wanted to say also, I am a comedian, also part-time, and I speak through memes. So just let you know off the top. All right. So you guys are here today because of some very pivotal things that LaKena had mentioned in crafting the conference, and that you have been treading water and could use a life preserver to catch your breath, right? Everyone around you is winning, and you just want your time. Like, God, when is it my time to get this thing popping, right? And then you give to everyone around you, and you are TIRED, right? My uncle like to say tied. He like to take the R out that thing. Tied. In other words, child, you like Miss Barbara on Abbott Elementary, right? Child, it's just like something got to give. Amen. So I'm here today to give you some good news because I have been where you are. I'm still there in certain aspects because we are growing and becoming, right? So I wanted to share with you my particular verse. That's my anchor verse for what I do and for everything that pretty much that I stand on, especially in this season of life. Is Matthew 6:33, but I like to give context, right? And my translation in this season is the Living Bible. It's giving everything for me. So I want to just read it aloud just so you can hear it, process it, get it in your heart and your spirit, because this is going to be the foundation for my story. So it reads as follows: and if God cares so wonderfully for flowers that are here today and gone tomorrow, won't he more surely care for you? Oh, and I say women that are on this webinar. So don't worry at all about having enough food and clothing. Why be like the heathen, for they take pride in all these things and are deeply concerned about them. But your heavenly Father, somebody say, my Father, already knows perfectly well that you need them, and he will give them to you if you would give him first place in your life, and two, live as he wants you to. So one of the funny things, it wasn't funny then, but it's funny now. So I have had a journey with depression and anxiety. And every time that I read this particular verse, I remember distinctly I was having a depression episode, and I was sitting in the park, and I was mad at the ducks because the ducks was just out there chilling in the pond. Folks was throwing bread at them. I mean, you talking about some supernatural provision, right? And I was just like, God, how come you got the ducks out here? They ain't got the one for them. They ain't got no bills. They ain't got no crazy baby daddy. You know, they ain't got no demanding job. But we supposed to be above the living thing, the animals and all. But no, because I ain't feeling none of that. Ain't nobody throwing no bread at me, man. Ain't nobody throwing no bread. Right? So in the midst of that, I had to realize that a lot of God's provision for me had to be based on how I knew him and my interpretation of his role in my life. So I hope that this kind of relates to you. This is kind of what I had to deal with. So with most women, we are planners, right? Anything that goes on in the house, Most people, your husband, your kids, your parents, they seek you, right, to be kind of like the chief operating officer, right? We are primarily, a lot of cases, the earners, and sometimes the primary earners of our household. We are providers, fixers, and that can also mean we are primarily controllers as well. In other words, I know for me, what I realized with me taking on all those different roles, that control really equated to a lack of trust. I really didn't see God as a provider for me, or to the fact that he loved me enough to even take some of that stuff off of me. I saw myself as a cash cow. I had to come off of that in February, right? Because we taking layers off, right? So as women, just a lot of the roles that we're placed in our lives can sometimes keep us from um that vision of the little girl that God is looking to take care of, right? God's little toot toot, if you will, little sugar girl, little sugar baby, if you will. So hold on, I go back. Y'all saw one of my little memes. All right, so one of the things that I had to realize is that I knew of God, but I didn't really know him, right? And if you look at this particular meme, being the little girl with that little teddy bear, for me, that little teddy bear was pretty much like, God, I'm just content with this right here. This it's all right. I mean, ain't starting no trouble with nobody, right? Or even like with some of the things that I had experienced in my life, some past beliefs, because I went through a divorce, right? I believed my first husband saying that nobody was gonna want to deal with me and my two boys. I believe the fact that I wasn't going to grow beyond being a teacher, right? Folks talked about me being an administrator, but I was like, I don't know about it. So I got to feed these kids, right? Some of the old dreams that I had, and gifts, and just settling. That's what that little bear represented for me. But that was just me knowing of God, just going through the motions. But if you see God in that big old bear, right? Because sometimes you just think, one of the other things that I thought was, as you get to an adult, whatever it is, it just pretty much is. You're gonna ride that thing out until we go to glory. But apparently God has some other things for us in the latter part, of our lives as we continue to go through this life. And so for us to really know God and to say yes to the assignment, we got to go in knowing that there are some things we're going to have to undo. There's going to be a great undoing, right? Some of the old beliefs that we had and some of the ways that we thought about ourselves, undoing a lot of maybe what our parents and some of our classmates or coworkers have said to us, a lot of traumatic events that have kind of sealed some statements onto our lives. Revisiting old dreams and gifts, right? Maybe there were some things that we did maybe kind of in our younger days, or maybe some of the things that people said that we really had a gift in, but we put it away once we got married and started having kids and stuff like that. And then even just exploring just new things, because guess what? As we, start having kids and getting married and working, things like that, we don't have time to dream anymore. We got life be lifing, right? And sometimes God wants to get us out of the identity of mom and wife and co-worker and just going back to our individual selves. Like our mentor, Pastor Sean, tells us, like, when God placed us on the earth, there was something in heaven that we were all famous for. It's getting us back to that essence, right? So doing between the knowing and knowing of. So how do I know God? How you get to know that man? How you get to know him, y'all? You gotta surrender. We don't like that word. We were like, little dude right there, like, surrender. Oh, wait a minute, ain't no gonna be like that. Right? That means we gotta release control of some things before we say yes to God's assignment. And just know when we say yes, it's gonna be a journey. And you're gonna be like, little dude, on your ankles, turn around quite a few more times, right? So here's a little bit of my story. So I'm currently a wife to Mariko Jones. We are a blended family. So my two biological children are Euro, who will be 22 next month. Jaira's 18. When I married Rico, we picked up three more boys. Macarius, who is 24, Ladarius is 23, and Tyler, who is 15. So we have five knucklehead boys. I'm a teacher by profession. So I've been in education for over 20 years. And through that journey, I am now the visionary CEO of GIP Financials, otherwise known as your Mr. Miyagi of money, right? But it wasn't always like this, y'all. Remember, I told you at the beginning I was divorced, right? So I was married to Euro and Jaira's father, and that was a long journey. I put 2005 to 2008 for a reason, because them divorces be divorcing, honey. And folks don't be wanting, child, come on. I see you, CB, right? So we started out uncontested, and then I ended up having to file default. So that was a 3-year process. And then through all of those things and having to figure out child support and stuff like that, I was like, at the end of the day, I still got to feed my kids and take care of my family. So during that time, I worked full time as an elementary music teacher. I was a church musician, and I also started a piano studio. We pretty much lived in the car, pretty much all the time. Between McDonald's and being in the car, Euro and Jaira, they were host in the house, because as soon as we got home from school, somebody was waiting on us in the driveway for piano lessons. And then we had to go to church, right? You know how the church musician life is, where you got regular service, then you got 3 p.m. service, and then wherever they called you from, you got to be on point for that. Always busy. But I started actually, in addition to my piano studio business, I started a property management real estate investment business with my parents called Bell Investments. And we invested in a block of properties in about 10 minutes away from the school where I taught it. And it was a great thing. It actually grew to us just renting properties to connecting with several nonprofits in the local Memphis area that needed temporary and permanent housing, for their clients. But eventually, my father ended up taking ill. He had a catheter ablation. He went to a doctor's appointment, and he ended up in ICU. You talking about something scary. And we ended up having, because he was our property manager, and I didn't personally trust the property management companies in Memphis because they did not cater to low income families. They weren't empathetic enough for me. We ended up selling the properties, and we lost over $75,000 in that investment. So, I was like, I ain't doing this no more. No, I thought I heard the Lord. He's like, no, no. And just in the midst of all that, right before we sold the properties, I felt like God was telling me to leave my, my teaching job, because they wouldn't offer me the opportunity to work part-time. And so if you can imagine, I was leaving my job in 2013, getting ready to be remarried. I remarried Rico in 2013, and having a plan, saved money, did all the things, right, that I felt like God was telling me to do. And then to end up losing those properties like that because dad was sick, you know. Um, I felt like I said yes to the assignment. But sometimes when you say yes to the assignment, disappointment is still going to happen, right? Life's going to life. And so what do you do in the midst of all that? So for me, I was like, child, I'm put this on the shelf. Noted. I ain't doing that no more. Right. So because of that, I just said I'm just gonna work. And I had, ideas and stuff, but eventually I was like, I'm not gonna take another chance like that again. I felt like the loss was too great. I almost lost my dad. So I was like, no, it ain't even worth all that. So between 2013 and 2018, I call it something like Pastor Strick say I was existing, but I really wasn't living. Right. So in the midst of 2013, I said, I'm just gonna go ahead and just get a part-time job. So the principal that I was under at my full-time job, he was asked to start a charter school. And so he asked me to work with him part-time. So I said, okay, I'll do that. Little did I know I wasn't gonna leave there until 10 years later, right? So I ended up becoming basically the director of finance and ops. And that's where I ended up learning all the skills and stuff that I needed for GIP. So around 2018, it was just kind of like, okay, where do we go from here? Because it was getting a little stagnant. I didn't know what was going on, right? Because you know how they say when one of the ways to find your purpose is you start being frustrated and start you're fussing at little things that really grinds your gears, right? So that's kind of what one of the things that started happening to me because we started, we were going through the charter school, a lot of my bosses, former classmates, former students, that was like, put me on, help me with my business, patronize me. So it was like good cop, bad cop, because me being the money person, I was like, hey, we can't pay you through PayPal, friends, and family. If we give you this check, you gotta fill out this W-9 so you can report this income on your taxes. So it was just a whole lot of drama around it. And after a year or so of that, I was like, child, I was done. Like something else got to give. But also in the midst of all that as well, I started GIP in 2019. I said, okay, God, after many mentors and, you know, laser coachings and all of that stuff, I went on ahead and said, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and start GIP Financial. We started small right before the pandemic, and we were really evangelizing. At the beginning, it was like evangelizing people on a PPP and EIDL loans, trying to keep folks from, being taken advantage of. Because you remember how it was, y'all. I'll fill out this application for you, get all this money, from the SBA. And you already know what happened to a lot of those folks. They got caught up at the end, right? And so in the midst of that, God had shown me and through a group called Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur, a young lady by the name of Sean Dennis Strickland. And I really resonated with her because with at the time, she was going through, her marriage journey with Pastor Strick, and I kind of resembled a lot of what she went through, especially with the emotional part of it. And so I eventually committed to joining the Soul Shift community in 2020 with Soul Shift Money, and then eventually grew into Soul Shift Inner Circle. But God, when I tell you, somebody say God knows what you need before you need it. When I needed that community, I mean, at the midst of that, the pandemic was going on. My ex was trying to get custody of our youngest son, Jairo, because our oldest son, Euro, started making some decisions, some unfavorable decisions. Nobody could have told me that the court was going to give my baby to my ex. Well, on September the 20th, 2021, they gave him full custody of Jairo. You talking about disappointment, you talking about hurt, you talking about mad. I was just numb. You know how you can just hear about something, and then on top of that, it was the fact that I had to, explain that. And you know how it is with moms, a mom that doesn't have custody of her baby, and the hoopla that comes with that, and the side eyes that come with that, right? And then on top of that, Euro had a medical scare in 2022. My husband and I, we were at my in-laws Memorial Day weekend, and my parents called me saying that Euro was just uncontrollable, was crying because they lost their paternal grandmother, um, Halloween of 2021. And when I got to him, um, there was about 6 or 7 EMTs, firefighters, policemen around him. Shirt was all tore up. And when he saw me, he was just like, just hysterical. Little did we later find out that he was smoking weed and got laced with fentanyl. And that was probably just, again, having to deal with Jairo in the custody, and then I didn't know where this was coming from Euro, and just having to hold him, while he was grieving over his grandma and trying to decipher what was going on with him. We had to send him to rehab, um, and try to figure out what was going on there. So I'm all just, you know how it goes with the highlight reel, the shoulda, woulda, couldas, and stuff like that. And then in the midst of all that, in June of 2022, I had our first vending event with GIP was we went to Miami, Florida, and I was working the GIP, right? This was summer, so school was supposed to be out. I put that in air quotes for a reason. Because my boss was constantly my boss was constantly emailing me about stuff. And one of my GIP teammates by the name of Diamond David just looked at me and said, "Son, you know you bigger than this. You know God has an assignment for you beyond, you know, vision prep. Have you considered it may be time? Have you considered God might be telling you it's time to leave?" Because in the midst of, you know, what was going on at work, we had at that time, we were working on our second principal in 2 years. And all of that, you know, pressure was being put on me because my boss he was trying to deal with his own stuff and me trying to single-handedly run that school. And that talk never left me. So I felt like Holy Spirit was just looking at me like, mm-hmm. So I used Diamond to talk to you. What you gonna do? What you gonna do? You gonna boss up? You gonna boss up? What you gonna do? Right? So guess what I did? I went on ahead and said yes. So in July 2022, and granted, let me just go ahead and back up and say we had the child support hearing for Jira. And I ended up having to pay my ex like literally 4 times more than what he ended up paying me for both of my kids when they were smaller. So I ended up having to say yes. And I was like, how am I gonna do this with child support? Because at the time I was making over 6 figures at my job. Having to deal with Euro, having to deal with, you know, my husband, and we still got 4 other children we still got to take care of, right? How? You know, how the kids, you be like, how, mama, how? Right? How we gonna do that? So, needless to say, this yes was definitely a scary, but yet I had to remain focused. So with that, especially with any of y'all that are looking into like, God, I know that you have something else for me to do. If I can share a little bit of my testimony, I saw the need, right? God was showing me the need at Vision Prep with entrepreneurs that lack financial acumen. I took a bet on my expertise, right? So I had to understand my value. I have over 10 years in school finance. So never discount your expertise and what you know. I offered help, right? Because if you're starting, especially if you're starting a business, sometimes you have to do things for free, right? Just to get your name out there. I invested in myself. So the Soul Shift Inner Circle community by far has given me dividend on top of dividend on top of dividend, right? With accountability. Because I'm paying y'all for somebody to tell me to grow up every month, tell them to grow up. And because of that, being able to just stay focused through tears, through anger, all of that, to still say, yes, God, I'm going to do what you told me to do. Although I literally don't know from day to day how in the world this is going to happen. I became a full-time entrepreneur May 25th, 2023. But I definitely will tell you this, thank you. That was not my plan either. My plan was to stay until the end of the fiscal year, June 30th. But, and Karen is on here because she's my sister for life. And walking through that whole process with her, because she was like, maybe God tell you to leave in December. So I was like, no, I'm gonna do right. I'm gonna try to leave on a good note, right? Still trying to control it. LaKena, I'm still trying to control it, sis. But on May 25th, God put me in a position where I had no choice but to leave my job. I literally walked out of my job. And it was the same day that I had this particular pitch competition, that same evening. I ain't even had my pitch all the way down. But that evening, I ended up winning 3rd place in that pitch competition. And I never forget, once I got that prize, and Robin was there, Robin Wilson Tucker was there, And I felt Holy Spirit was like, see, I told you, right? So even in the midst of that, I mean, within, I say maybe 4 or 5 hours, because I walked off my job at like noon, and then the pitch was at 5:30, right? And not knowing how my mind, was going to, be at that time. That's saying yes to God's assignment, right? So as we wrap up, just a couple things I want to leave with you as I reflect and just give God praise for this journey. One, y'all, you can't do this without seeking and obeying God. And you got to ask that man some questions. He want to hear your questions. He want to hear your questions. He made you. He know you're going to give him some side eye. He know you're going to give him some of those. He already know that because he made you. But if you commit every day to saying, God, regardless of what, you might have to put some blinders on, y'all. Regardless of all the stuff that's going on around you, you gotta be like, God, I remember what you said. And I know I'm not gonna be worn out by time. I won't keep doing what you said to do, right? And then even in the midst of that, still ask questions, God, what does this mean? What does this look like? Right? Because he's not gonna give it to you, like boom, right? He's gonna give it to you step by step. Your faith walk is a lifetime journey. Again, do not let time wear you out. Women, we like to control things, right? Don't let time wear you out. To me, that's the biggest part of my faith journey. Not letting time wear me out. Y'all, you gotta find your tribe. You gotta find some folks that they faith on fleek as well. That's gonna let you sulk. That's gonna let you say what you got to say. All right, wipe your face. What did God say? Get your tail up. Let's go. Right? Focus on the first downs versus the touchdowns. Now, I got this from Travis Green. Amazing revelation. He was saying when he was talking about focusing on the first downs versus the touchdowns, and I'm thinking about the Super Bowl. If I got any 49er fans on here, my husband's a 49ers fan. I feel you. He just now starting back watching ESPN, so I understand. So when you talk about the touchdowns, sometimes when you are going for the touchdowns, and I always think of Tom Brady, sometimes if the goal is to touchdown, sometimes we can react in a way that can be a little bit extreme, right? We can throw the Hail Mary, or we can, kind of react a little hastily when it comes to God's assignment because we think it's supposed to happen in a certain way. Just because God says this doesn't always mean it's going to be easy. But if you think about the first downs, because every time you get a 1st and 10, you got 4 more opportunities to get to the touchdown. So when Travis Green said that, I said, dude, that makes sense, right? So especially if you think about the first downs, you got time to strategize. You got time to walk that thing out, right? So focus on the first downs, right? The God of the process versus the touchdowns. Like, whoo, I don't know how this gonna go. When bills and stuff start coming in on you, don't throw the Hail Mary. Think about the first down. God, which bill you want me to pay? God, we're gonna go, whoo, we're gonna try this business and try to pay all our bills in one time. And right? Don't want to do that. Learn to manage your disappointment. And then the yes will not be easy, y'all, but it will be peaceful. Y'all, I'm here to tell y'all, all my bills ain't paid. All my bills ain't paid. But I go to bed at night knowing that I'm still doing what God told me to do. I do not know literally what's going to happen day to day or month to month. But I do know that God gave me a word about some things. He said GIP was going to be the solution for X, Y, and Z in my life, that it was going to help me eliminate some debt. So I got to stand on that, right? And just like I said, it's helped me eliminate some bills, but we ain't debt free yet, but it's on the way. So when you say yes to God's assignment, y'all got to focus on those first downs. You know what I'm saying? You got to focus on those first downs. So I hope that this has blessed you. And again, GIP Financials, we are a local bookkeeping firm headquartered in Memphis, Tennessee. We serve for-profit as well as nonprofit organizations. but we're all about folks knowing their numbers. We're all about knowing your numbers. And so we have a podcast called From Chaos to Clarity podcast, where we literally, all we talk about is entrepreneurs that went from before I knew my numbers, my business was a hot mess. After I learned my numbers, they ain't have to do it with us. They could hire their own bookkeepers and stuff and just say my business grew to scale. We were able to get grants and funding and things like that. My mindset had to change. A lot of entrepreneurs need to hear about the change before they commit to a partner such as a bookkeeper and a financial advisor. So we get that, and we wanted to make sure to create a safe space for that. So LaKena's put the link in the chat. So if y'all want access to the podcast, you can have access to it. I also get the QR code here. It's on every podcast platform that you can think of. I don't even know them all, but it's on that link once you get the opt-in though, put your email address in that thing. All right. So, I want to thank y'all so much for the opportunity. And I know we're going to go into Q&A. So, it's all back on you, LaKena.
Thank you. That was so good. So good. And I see how I'll give you a little background for those who are here. I did not tell anyone what they were to speak on. I heard the Holy Spirit say, let them, me and them figure that out. And I see how my talk is building on what she spoke on. So I'm just telling you, you're in the right place. You are in the right time. So thank you, Sonja, for sharing for the first time publicly your journey in entrepreneurship. And I do want to respect everyone's time. I know we might be a few minutes over, but if you have any questions, please feel free to either put them in the chat or raise your hand, and then you can come off mute. I want everybody to come off mute at one time, but if you have any questions that Sonja can answer for you, please, please, please go ahead, drop them in the chat, or you can raise your hand and then I'll get you off of mute. And then of course, the link to get to her email list, so you can make sure what's coming up. Maybe you're starting a business, maybe you're in a business and you're in that point where you don't want to do, I don't like doing my own books. Maybe you don't want to do QuickBooks. You can have a discovery call to see what your business needs are. And she has her email, or excuse me, her URL right there for you if you want to take a screenshot or write it down. And if you don't need it right now, guess what? If God has said you're going to the other side in your business, take it down, because you're going to the other side in your business if you keep moving in faith. So you may not need it today, but you may need it 6 months from now, 10 months from now. So you never prepare yourself. That's part of also walking in faith. God, I may not need it right now, but I'm going to make sure I have what I prepare myself for when those floodgates do open in my life. All right. Any questions? And if not, I am going to say thank you for joining us for day one. There is tomorrow, same time, same place, right here. We have Hillary Bell, who will be the expert of the evening. And I'm not going to tell you what she's speaking on. So you just come back and find out what she's speaking on, because she may have changed it by now anyway. So I don't have anything else. So if no one else has anything, please know that I do again appreciate you for taking time out of your day to come and to sit and to learn. Again, thank you, Sonja, for your transparency. God never said it would be easy, but he did say that if we trust him and put him first, that he is taking us to where we need to go. And it is just amazing to see how he has been faithful in our lives, because it gives us a visual that if she went through all that and she's still in this place of peace and trust, I can do the same thing. So that's why I think sisterhood is so important, so that we can make sure that we always see God is not a respecter of person. If he did it for her, God, I know you'll do it for me. All right. I don't see any questions. So I'm going to say from my heart to yours, know that I absolutely love you. But more importantly, Christ loves you and he died on the cross for you. So if you don't know him, please reach out to me, because I'd love to introduce you to him. All right. Until tomorrow, be blessed. Have a good evening.
Take care, y'all. Thanks again. Thank you, LaKena.